It's finally here. Trump's 100th day in office. Now, to run down quickly what's gone on today, he is planning on having a rally in Pennsylvania that should be happening in 2 hours. They said 7 o'clock. I'm not sure what time zone they're referring to, but it's 2 o'clock here, so at 4, I'm expecting for it to take place. The other event of significance was my deciding to just make this an evaluation of what I see currently in this administration. Now, there was a claim back on the campaign trail about draining the swamp, and I know this has probably been done to death at this point, but it's so sad how that was the one thing I really thought maybe might happen, because you have to remember Trump himself is wealthier than most people, has hundreds of millions of dollars. And I really figured that with a person having that much cash and being able to back themselves in this race, surely they'll be able to stand up to Wall Street and other special interest groups that try to persuade you toward a certain position, a certain issue. And I proved to be dead wrong, given his pick of Secretary of State Tillerson for that position, DeVos for the Department of Education, Mnuchin for Department of Treasury. That might be I'm a little bit more lenient toward the picking of him, but my point in saying this is that when he started making choices of nominating people that way, those were early warning signs. And this newest tax cut where the poorer Americans are going to pay for most of this stuff really solidified that this is the expansion of the swamp rather than its draining, as far as this administration is concerned. On matters of policy, he has rolled back issues legislation that regulated waste and just dumps. And the one that, bothers me the most in terms of these rolling backs and acceptings is just that Keystone XL pipeline. That gets me every time. Every day I think about it, I just shake my head. It doesn't, I don't lose sleep over it, but it's the fact that we're really going to get to a point where if there's a tiny little hole, a pinhole made in that thing, 700,000 gallons of oil are going to pour into our environment. And you won't get one of those drones to go and check that out until, 3 weeks have passed? Not to mention only making 35 jobs after it was sworn that this would make, 20,000 according to Senator Isaacson. I already went over that before, but that still is my main grievance, outside of, I mean, if he didn't deliver on most of his things, such as building the wall or, that tax credit thing, I wouldn't have mind, because it really said to me that it was, it was rhetoric, and it was empty rhetoric that was made, and I was okay with that because of it being empty and not real. But it is, or at least they're trying to make it be. So we're not going to get our wishes of, actually seeing him recant that. Let's talk about his cabinet. Tillerson is a puppet who I don't think knows what he's doing. Actually, take that back. He is making Trump out to be the puppet because of his ties to Putin, which is why he got that job. ExxonMobil's finest. DeVos is also incompetent in her position. Sessions actually knows what he's doing as far as this is going to be done, that's going to be done, we're going to give you this many days. The problem is I don't agree with separating families. On the whole police brutality thing, people have to understand, him taking that position is due to the demonizing of law enforcement by media that has portrayed them as the murderers and killers of people of color, which we've unfortunately found out the majority of the deaths of people of color are by other people of color. But I'm not saying that to suggest that there is no indication of police brutality whatsoever. The Walter Scott case would be a perfect example of that still existing. My point is, you can't take the hard line approach yourself and expect the other person to just compromise. You both have to compromise. So yeah, his position on that is understandable to me, even if I don't agree with it. Who else is just gonna come off the top of my head? Mnuchin. That's another person who's just kind of there to spout out stuff and talk. I mean, he is what he is. I think there was some little story about him trying to promote Lego Batman, and if that was the case, because he was executive producer, that would be amusing. Um, I'll just go down to the only two I really like are the ambassador to the UN, Haley, who I liked even while she was governor of South Carolina, because she's outspoken and seemingly the pseudo Secretary of State, unfortunately. And Mattis, who I also think, even if I don't agree necessarily with everything he says, he's very poised in the way he goes about speaking of the engagements we have abroad. And the position he's in allows him not to have to run into a stumbling block with most liberals on TYT, CNN, because he's not talking about social issues because it's not in his job description. He's also an independent. I think he's in a position where even if he's not, I think he's the perfect example rather of someone who was capable or suitable for the job, getting the job amongst a crowd of people that are just kind of randomly assembled. And you'll notice that TYT doesn't talk much about him or Haley at all, as a result of their seeming okay with them or just not taking issue. So besides them, I'm kind of about everybody else, except maybe John Kelly, who I need to see more of before I can give a fair assessment to. Now, what's been very interesting to note is that he's not attending the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And that was referring to President Trump, that's the first time since Reagan's first year that the president has not attended that dinner. Reagan was in the hospital, or rather had just recently been subject to an assassination attempt by Mr. Hinckley, who got out last year. So you can kind of understand why he wouldn't be there. That being said, that's another example of just the willingness to break traditions. And I'm not trying to say he's forced to do every single thing every president ever did, but that goes along with wanting to be different for the sake of being different. I don't see why he wouldn't use that as an opportunity to just go back against those who had spoken negatively about him. It doesn't really add up to me. So, in conclusion, I think that the policies we've seen in place so far are very regressive. They're sending us back into this position of just it wants to be a complete determinator of, and that's a word I'm getting off of off of TV tropes rather. It wants to just take everything that all of these different liberals were saying about, oh, it's the rich people's administration, it's the rich people. It really is. But it's not only just theirs. It's also for people who deny that climate change is a big deal, who are so hard line in their support of officers that they're just going to pretend nothing is ever wrong with them. And I can't really see anything positive out of this except for the two cabinet members I mentioned I liked, who I'll be very surprised if they stay the whole time. And that's sad to me that I came in here and I wanted to give him a chance. I think I did give him a chance, and I am not satisfied. Do I like Hillary anymore because of this? No. But I'm not impressed with what won. And I just can't find anything good to say other than at least we've made it this far. Let's try to see if we can squeeze out another 3 years so we can get him out.